this video, which is part 2 of the Selector in the step-by-step telephone switching system, we are going to examine the digit absorption feature of the selector you see here, which is a Bell System ED30976 selector. Switch activities in the digit absorption process that also occur on a non-digit absorbing call will not be covered in detail in this video, since they are dealt with in the Selector Part 1 video. The digit absorbing feature was added in the late 1940s with the introduction of the national numbering system. In the mid-1940s, the Bell system had begun preparations for a standardized national numbering system needed for nationwide operator toll dialing, and later for customer direct distance dialing. In this system, every local number would consist of 7 characters, typically at that time 2 letters followed by 5 numerals, and later, of course, just 7 numerals. In addition to the 7 numerals, each telephone number would also have a 3-digit area code assigned, making every 10-digit phone number in North America unique. It should be understood that when the national numbering system was introduced into a step office, 7-character dialing had to be accommodated, since this is how the telephone numbers were published. So let's take a look at the selector apparatus that is particular to the digit absorbing feature. It makes use of these parts. We have 2 normal post springs. This is the normal post. This is the left normal post spring assembly, and this is the right normal post spring assembly. And then below that we have this white plastic cam, which is called the normal post cam. We are also going to be using the F relay and the Z relay. A new normal post cam looks like this before modifications for digit absorbing arrangement. So this cam is fully equipped, having 10 protruding teeth on both its left and right sides. Each horizontal row of 2 teeth is associated with a particular level on the bank assembly. The 2 teeth on the top row are associated with level 1 on the bank. The second row down is associated with level 2 on the bank, and so on until we get to the bottom row, which is associated with level 0 on the bank. So to make adjustments for the particular digit absorbing feature required, then the appropriate teeth would be snapped off with a pair of pliers, so that you can arrange any level to have any of the absorption features you want. Looking down from the top of the cam, you can see the keyhole-shaped slot that runs through its length. This allows the cam to be pushed into its position around the normal post, on which it is able to slide up and down with the movement of the switch shaft. And at the bottom of the cam is its bracket latching arrangement. This slips over the shaft spring bracket in order to keep the cam in position. Now, in the good old days when normal post cams were first introduced, they were made of metal, as you can see here, and adjustments were made by bending the teeth in or out with a pair of pliers. But as I say, that was the good old days. I believe the plastic cams came out sometime during the 1970s. Each of the normal post spring assemblies has a rubber roller attached to the bottom of the movable middle spring. When the shaft moves upwards and the roller encounters a tooth on the normal post cam, it will roll over that tooth, thus flexing the spring, causing it to operate. It should be noted that during pulsing, the normal post springs may operate and release several times. This has no effect on any switch activity. It is only the position of the normal post springs when the pulse train is completed that determines which digit absorbing feature will take effect. The alignment of the normal post cam with the bank levels is such that during vertical stepping, when the wipers are lined up with any given level, the cam tooth position for that level lines up exactly with the center of the normal post spring roller. Here, for example, the wipers are lined up with level 6 on the bank, and the normal post left side spring roller is residing on the crest of the level 6 cam tooth. So here is how the cam teeth are set up on my test stand selector. There are 4 possible arrangements: no teeth, both teeth, left tooth only, or right tooth only. The 4 absorption features are designated by letters: C for cutting and rotary hunt, AR for absorb repeatedly, A for absorb once and unlock the switch, and B for blocking. We'll be describing these features in detail as the video progresses. Right now we'll just describe the cam setup for each feature. So here you can see that on levels 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 and 9 and 0 there are no teeth. So those particular levels will always cut in and rotary hunt. Notice that level 3 and level 6 are set up for absorb repeatedly because they have the left tooth installed. No tooth on the right side, just the left side. On level 8 we have the A feature, so we have both a left and a right set of teeth on that level. And then lastly on level 7 we only have a right side tooth, so that level is set up for blocking. Okay, so let's watch a call being processed for each of the 4 possible cam arrangements. We'll start out with a call to level 0, and as you can see on level 0 there are no teeth, so this call should just cut in and rotary hunt, just as if it was a non-digit absorbing call, which is what it really is. We'll show the switch actions for the digit absorbing features in slow motion. Okay, so I'm going to dial a 0 and we're going to watch the shaft and wipers step up to level 0, and then I'm going to stop the progress so we can in turn have a look at what's happening simultaneously with the normal post cam and the normal post springs. So here the wipers are lined up with level 0. Let's see what happened with the normal post cam and springs. The shaft raised the normal post cam up 10 positions. The normal post rollers are in line with the 0 level of the cam, and since there are no cam teeth on level 0, neither the left nor the right normal post springs are operated. At this point, relay C has just released, and relays A, B, E, and F are operated. Normal rotary hunting now begins because no digit absorbing features are activated on level 0. So let's watch the rotary hunting action of the shaft and wipers. So the selector rotary hunted and found an idle circuit on the 10th position. The selector now seizes the idle circuit, throughputs the calling line to this circuit, and stabilizes into its connected stage. The next digit dialed is processed by the newly seized circuit. Now let's take a look at the absorb repeatedly feature. This feature is used to absorb excess digits that are dialed that are not required for the correct routing of the call. This feature is activated when only the left normal post springs operate. As you can see in our test switch, the cam is arranged for absorb repeatedly on levels 3 and 6. Let's try a call on level 3. Okay, so I'm going to dial a 3 and then stop the progress of the call when the 3 pulses have been received. First, let's take a look at the shaft and wiper activity. So we see the shaft and wipers stepped up to the 3rd level. Now let's look at the simultaneous normal post cam and spring activity. So the cam stepped up 3 positions, and the left normal post springs are now operated, but the right ones are not. With both the F relay and the left normal post springs operated, the path for operating the Z relay is closed, and so the Z relay operates. Z operated opens the operating path for the rotary magnet, and so no rotary stepping occurs. Z operated also closes the operating path for the release magnet, which now operates and allows the shaft and wipers to return to their normal position. The selector is now restored to its seized stage, with only relays A, B, F, and Z operated. This same selector is now ready to process the pulses of the next digit to be dialed. The Z relay is released by the operation of relay C when the first pulse is received. The selector now continues to process the second digit just as if it were the first digit being received. Now let's watch the action of the shaft and wipers at normal speed if the digit 3 were dialed 3 more times in a row. As you can see, absorb repeatedly means just that. Let's take a look now at the blocking feature. This feature is used when a dialing error is made, and it provides a 120 IPM tone, or a fast busy tone, to the caller to indicate that the call cannot be completed as dialed. This feature is activated when only the right normal post springs operate. As you can see in our test switch, the cam is arranged for blocking on level 7. Let's try a call to that level now. So I'm going to dial a 7 and stop the progress of the call when the 7 pulses have been received. First, we'll take a look at the shaft and wiper activity. So we see the shaft and wiper stepped up to the 7th level. Now let's look at the simultaneous normal post cam and springs activity. So the normal post cam stepped up 7 positions, and we can see that the right normal post springs are operated and the left ones are not. There is no closed path to operate the Z relay, so it remains released. So there is nothing to prevent rotary hunting from proceeding, and the shaft and wipers begin to rotary hunt. However, with both the F relay and the right normal post springs operated, an additional path from ground to the E relay winding is closed. This ground path only opens with the rotary interrupter, and so it keeps the E relay pulsing, regardless of whether or not there is ground on the sleeve terminal of the succeeding circuit. Rotary motion continues to the 11th rotary step, at which point the 11th rotary step springs operate. This opens the operate path to the E relay and rotary motion stops. Let's watch. Now let's look at the simultaneous action of the 11th rotary step cam and springs. The operated 11th rotary step springs remove dial tone from the calling line and replace it with a 120 IPM tone. The switch remains stable in this off normal condition until the calling line hangs up and the switch releases. Now let's take a look at the A feature, which is absorb once and unlock the switch. This feature is used to process a first digit received that must be dialed for proper routing of the call, but is itself absorbed by the switch. Then for the second digit received, it provides an override to all digit absorbing features and allows rotary hunting to occur on all levels. This feature is activated when both the left and right normal post springs operate. As you can see from our test switch, level 8 is arranged for the A feature because there are teeth on both the left and right sides of the cam. So let's try a call to level 8 now. I'll dial an 8 and then I'll stop the progress of the call once the 8 pulses have been received by the selector. First, let's take a look at the shaft and wiper activity. So we see that the shaft and wipers have stepped up to the 8th level. Now let's take a look at the simultaneous normal post cam and springs activity. So the normal post cam stepped up 8 positions, and we can see that both the left and right normal post springs are now operated. With both the F relay and the left normal post springs operated, the path for operating the Z relay is closed, and so the Z relay operates. Z operated opens the operating path for the rotary magnet, and so no rotary stepping occurs. As well, with both the Z relay and the right normal post springs operated, the path for holding the F relay operated opens up, and so the F relay releases. The Z relay operated also closes the operating path for the release magnet, which now operates and allows the shaft and wipers to return to their normal position. The switch has now returned to its seized stage, and only the A, B, and Z relays remain operated at this time. The selector is now ready to receive the pulses of the second digit to be dialed. I'm going to dial a 7 for the second digit to be processed by this selector. However, I'm going to stop the progress after the first pulse is received. Let's watch. After the first pulse is received, the C relay operates as on any call, and this opens the operating path for the Z relay, which now releases. Both the F and Z relays are now released, and the operating paths for these relays remain open for the duration of the processing of the dialed digit. Let's watch the shaft and wiper activity for the remaining 6 pulses, then watch the normal post cam and spring activity. So the normal post cam has stepped up 7 positions, and we see that the right normal post springs are operated and the left ones are not. As we have seen previously, this arrangement should activate the B blocking feature. However, the switch has been unlocked, and no digit absorbing features can be activated on this digit. So the switch will rotary hunt on any level that is dialed. The A feature activation on the first digit dialed caused the F and Z relays to be held released for the processing of the second digit dialed. With these relays released, the normal post spring operations have no effect on the switch activity, and processing proceeds as on a non-digit absorbing call. We saw that the switch rotary hunted on level 7 and found an idle circuit on the very first terminal. At this point, the switch will seize the succeeding circuit and connect the calling line through to the succeeding circuit. This switch then stabilizes into its connected stage, and the next digit dialed is processed by the succeeding circuit. So here's an example of a step-by-step switching diagram. Now, a switching diagram is used by the telephone companies to diagrammatically show the way in which calls route through their telephone systems. So in this particular example, we see that in the rectangular boxes, the switch types are identified. So we have the line finders, the first selectors, the fifth selectors, and the connectors. Now, the 10 horizontal lines below each block represent the 10 levels of the bank assemblies. Now we're going to look at 3 examples, and the first one is an office in existence prior to the introduction of the nationwide numbering plan, and where there are no digit absorption selectors in service. This is just going to be a town, fictitious town. We're going to call it Westmore. That'll be the central office identifier. The telephone numbers are strictly 4-digit telephone numbers, 0000 to 9999. And the number we're going to dial is 8551. Now I've kept things very simple in this office in that it does not have any outgoing calls or any incoming calls or any calls to service codes such as for repair or information or to the operator. It strictly handles intra-office calls to the 10,000 numbers 0000 to 9999. So here each first selector, the 10 levels, would be associated with 1,000 digits from 1 up to 0. Each rank of fifth selectors would associate its levels with a particular hundreds digit from 1 up through 0. And then of course the connectors handle the last 2 digits of the phone number, the tens and the units digits. So let's follow a call through to telephone number 8551. So the calling line picks up the phone, that activates its line circuit. The line circuit requests a line finder is selected, it hunts for and connects to the calling line and connects it to the first selector. The first selector returns dial tone to the calling line, and the calling line is ready to start dialing. The first digit that the calling line dials is an 8, so the first selector steps up to the 8th level and rotary hunts for a trunk to a 5th selector, finds an idle 5th selector and connects to it, seizes it. The 5th selector is now ready to receive the hundreds digit. The hundreds digit is a 5, so when the calling line dials the 5, the 5th selector steps up to the 5th level and rotary hunts for a trunk to the connector, finds an idle connector and connects to it. So the connector is seized and it's ready to receive the tens and units digit of the called number. The calling line dials the tens digit, which is a 5, and the connector steps up to the 5th level. However, it doesn't rotary hunt now, it has to wait for the units digit to be dialed. So the customer dials the units digit, which is a 1, and the connector rotary steps to the first terminal position, which is the terminal associated with telephone number 8551. So the connector now has seized the called line and outputs ringing current on that line, and it rings the called line telephone. The called line answers, ringing is tripped by the connector, and the connector connects the calling line through to the called line, and a conversation can commence. Okay, so in the second example, we're in the same office, Westmore, and this is after the introduction of the nationwide numbering plan, so everybody's on the 7-character dialing plan in this office, but there are no digit absorption selectors available. So the central office code for Westmore is 937, or WES if they're still using the letter and station number combination. And in the directory, the telephone numbers would be listed as 937-0000 to 937-9999. So the call that we're going to make this time is a 7-digit call, 937, same phone number, 8551. And the calling line dials the first digit, which is a 9. So the first selector steps up to the 9th level, rotary hunts to find an idle second selector, finds an idle second selector and seizes it. The second selector is now seized and is ready to receive the second digit. The second digit that the customer dials is a 3, so the second selector steps up to the 3rd level. It rotary hunts and finds an idle trunk to a 3rd selector. 3rd selector is seized. Customer now dials the 3rd digit, which is a 7. The 3rd selector steps up to the 7th level and rotary hunts for an idle trunk to a 4th selector. An idle trunk is found and a 4th selector is seized. The calling line is now going to dial the 1000th digit, which is an 8. So the 4th selector steps up to the 8th level and rotary hunts for an idle trunk to a 5th selector. Finds an idle 5th selector and the 5th selector is seized. and the customer now is going to dial the hundredths digit, which is a 5. So the fifth selector steps up to the fifth level and rotary hunts for an idle trunk to a connector. Finds an idle connector and it gets seized, and the customer can now dial the tens digit, which is a 5. The connector steps up to the fifth level, and it doesn't rotary hunt here. Now it's going to wait for the units digit, which is a 1. So the customer dials the units digit 1, and the connector rotary steps 1 position to the first terminal, which is the terminal associated with 9378551. So that called line is now seized, and the connector sends ringing current over to the called line telephone. The called line party answers, the connector trips the ring and connects the calling line through to the called line, and a conversation can commence. So you can see in this example we had to provide a selector rank for each of the first 5 digits dialed, because there's no way to absorb any of these digits. We have to accommodate the dialing of 7-digit numbers because we are now under the nationwide numbering plan, and that's how the numbers are published. Now, providing all these ranks of selectors would have been a very expensive proposition. So to overcome that, the digit absorbing selector was introduced, and we'll take a look at that now. So in the third example, we have the nationwide numbering plan in effect, which means 7-character dialing, but we have selectors that have the digit absorption capability. Again, the central office code is 937, telephone numbers 937-0000 to 937-9999, and the number we're calling is 937-8551. So the calling line is going to dial a 9, and the first selector will step up to the 9th level. But it's not going to rotary hunt for an idle trunk. Instead, it's just going to drop back down to its release position. And that's because on level 9, the selector had the AR digit absorbing feature. And the legend says that AR means absorb repeatedly. So when the customer dials a 9, it steps up and just drops back down. The next digit then is not handled by the next rank of selectors. It's handled by the same selector that handled the first digit. So the second digit to be dialed is a 3. So the selector steps up to the 3rd level, and guess what? It's AR again, and so the selector just drops back down to its released position. And the next digit will also be handled by the first selector. So now the calling line is going to dial the 3rd digit, which is a 7. So the selector steps up to the 7th level, and here we see the digit absorbing feature is now an A. And the legend says that an A is absorb once and unlock the switch. So the first part of that is absorb once. So again, the switch shaft will drop back down to its released position. And the second part of that feature is unlock the switch. Unlock the switch means that whatever level you dial now, you will rotary hunt regardless of what the absorption feature is on that level. The A feature causes the switch to override the absorption features on the next digit. So the next digit that's dialed is an 8. So we step up to the 8th level, and the switch is unlocked, so we rotary hunt for a trunk to the 5th selector. 5th selector is found and seized, and the customer now dials the next digit, which is a 5, and the 5th selector steps up to the 5th level and rotary hunts for a trunk to a connector, finds an idle connector and seizes it. The customer now dials the tens digit, which is a 5, so the connector steps up to the 5th level and then waits for the units digit to be dialed. The customer dials the units digit, which is 1, and the connector rotary steps 1 position to the first terminal, which is the terminal associated with 9378551. It seizes that line and sends ringing current over to the called line. The called line answers the phone, and the connector connects the calling line and the called line together, and the conversation can commence. So, by using digit-absorbing first selectors, we were able to avoid providing ranks of second, third, and fourth selectors in order to accommodate the 7-digit dialing plan. Now let's have a look what would happen if a customer just tried to make a 4-digit call through the switch. So we'll use our same example telephone number, but we'll just have the customer dial 8551. Let's see what happens. So the customer dials an 8 as the first digit, and the first digit absorption feature on this selector is a B. And B says block and return 120 IPM tone. 120 IPM, that's 120 interruptions per minute. So it's just like a steady busy tone that's interrupted 120 times a minute. So you get that bzz, 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 bzz sound. So what happens on the B is the switch steps up to the 8th level, and because there's a B absorption feature there, it steps over to the 11th rotary step position, operates the 11th rotary step spring assembly, and returns the 120 IPM tone to the customer. So the customer hears that tone and knows at that point that his call cannot be completed as dialed. So this would be the case for any of these thousands digits. Thousands digit 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 0. Any of those thousands digit dialed as a first digit would get blocked. Let's see what happened if a customer dialed 3333. Dial the 3, AR drops off. 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 No ring. So we have a no ring condition on that call. Okay, let's suppose the customer dials telephone number 7851. Dial a 7, absorbs once and unlocks the switch, so it drops off. Dials the 8, steps up to the 8th level. Now it rotary hunts because the B feature has been overridden by the A feature. So it finds a trunk to a 5th selector. Dials a 5, steps up to the 5th level, gets a connector. Dials the 1, steps up to the 1st level and hangs there because that's all the digits the customer is going to dial. And again, we're going to have a no ring condition. Now let's see what would happen if the customer dialed a 5-digit call and dialed 78551. So the first digit dialed is a 7, so we step up and we reach the A level, which is absorb once and unlock the switch, so it drops off. And then it dials an 8, steps up to the 8th level. It's got the B feature, but it's overridden by the A feature, so it rotary hunts to a 5th selector. Dial the 5, steps up to the 5th level and rotary hunts for a connector. Connector is seized. Dial the 10s digit, which is a 5. Connector steps up to the 5th level and waits. So the customer dials the units digit 1, and the connector rotary steps 1 position to the first terminal and makes a connection through to the called line. So that call would progress fine. In fact, in this office setup, any 5-digit call, dialed correctly of course, would get through. So what would happen in these scenarios, and there were lots of them, is that the people lived in the town would quickly learn that they can get away with dialing only 5 digits, while visitors to the town would have to look up numbers in the directory and they would dial all 7 digits. So the switch train can accommodate both the 7-digit call and the 5-digit call. This concludes my video of the digit absorbing functions of the step-by-step selector. If you'd like to see my other telephony videos, search for Lenny the Phone Guy on YouTube. Be sure to include the quotation marks. Thanks for watching.